So today we're going to do something a little bit different. One of those projects that you might not use all the time, maybe you'll never use, but I think it's definitely a worthwhile thing to give a shot because it's going to be fun, it's going to give you something exciting to do through the day, and at the end you have this really cool looking thing that is actually functionable. Now you probably think, come on, you stop pulling our leg. Well, we're going to be pulling a pulley. We're going to take this and we're going to make a pulley. And then you can elaborate on that and make more, but let's get the pulley started. So, what you need, well, run the intro. Okay, so what you're gonna need for the pulley to start is you're gonna need some type of round. The larger this is, the larger your pulley itself is gonna be. I just picked something that is probably about 3 inches in diameter. It doesn't have to be perfectly round. The rounder the better though. You don't wanna pick square wood. Those square trees just don't work too good. You know somebody's crushing the comments right now saying there's no such thing as a square tree. You get my point. Rounder, the better. Now, once you have that, you're gonna have to decide, are you going to drill or are you going to bow drill? You can do either one. I'm gonna show you the bow drill and how we actually would do that. It's a little bit more pain in the butt, but definitely a way to get the job done. You saw me use hand drills 1,000 times. Who wants to see me do that again? Okay, so think of a bow drill friction fire, okay? We make our board, we make our spindle, we drive our spindle down into our board. So it's gonna be the same concept, but we're not trying to get an ember. We really don't care about that at all. All we're trying to do is drill that hole. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a piece of wood. In this case, we can just use a branch that we think is sized correctly. I'm still gonna do a little bit of carving to it. I'm still gonna point one end, round the other end like a pencil eraser. I'm gonna take off this bark, and then I'm gonna get spinning. We're gonna get this thing spinning down into that first piece of wood that I showed you. Okay, so here's what we got happening. I made myself a bow, just like a bow drill fire. I made myself a bearing block, and I made myself my spindle. Now my spindle, I went back since the last scene by looking at it, and I thought I need to make it a little bit longer. It's gonna make my life a little bit easier. And then I have my piece of wood here that we are going to be using. So I just found this tree that's down here with the Y. I could stick it in, it's gonna make my life a little bit simpler. Again, this is going to be a simplistic version of spinning a bow drill spindle. The purpose of this is just to burn down through our bigger block of wood, okay? So really simple here. So let me get myself set up. I'm going to start burning in. It's going to take a little bit of time. If you had a drill, of course, a lot faster, but we'll get it done. Now, what you're going to notice is this is long. I'm gonna burn this down until I get 2 or 3 or 4 inches in, okay? Ultimately, I want my pulley about 3 inches, so I'm gonna have to burn beyond 3 inches here, and then I'll cut it, okay? It's the same as when you drill something out, then you cut it and you have a nice clean drill hole. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm gonna start this in, I'm gonna drill in, then I'll cut it, and then I'll have part of my pulley ready to go. All right, so what we're gonna do now is get ourselves in a position that we can get some downward pressure to start drilling down, and keep that larger piece of wood stable. It's quite difficult to get this in a good position, so you honestly have to just play around with it. If you have a second person, they can hold on to it. If you find a dead standing tree, you can just cut that tree and then just drill down into it and cut it that way too. So that would work. I have a piece though, so I'm just gonna have to make do with it. So I'm gonna get myself here ready to go. I can use my body in a different position here than I normally would with a friction fire, and just start drilling. All right, so here's where we're at. Burnt hole, spindle that was carved a few times. We're going in about 2.5 to 3 inches. Very tiring. It'll wear you out. You got to carve your spindle a few times, fix your bearing block a few times, but you can get the job done. So you can get that hole burned in there. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your saw and you are going to cut this. So we're going to cut this and we're going to be left with a piece of wood that has a hole in it. So what I'm doing right now is cleaning up both sides of my spindle. Now, depending on how beat up your spindle is and how much it's shortened as you had to continue to carve it, is gonna depend if you need to get a new spindle or not. But in my case, it's a little bit large yet, so that's good. Okay, I'm gonna trim it down, but I can put that on there and you can see what direction we're headed right now. So we have this thing spinning on here nice and freely. I'm gonna find the section of this spindle that it seems to work best on, okay? Which is probably right in about the middle there. So I'm gonna cut these two edges off, but I'm not gonna do that right now super fast because I want to do some other things here, and then I can decide if I need to shorten these sides out or not. Okay, so what we're gonna do next is we're gonna make a reference line dead center of our larger piece of wood. Now, the reason that I like to do this is a step that you don't need, but I like to do it for the simple fact that it's gonna give you a guide of where to make your remaining cuts. And that's a little bit important. If you don't care that much, don't make the cut, but I would suggest to make it. Once you make that reference line all the way around, what you're gonna do then is either with your knife, or in my case, I'm gonna just use my saw because I have one with me, is I'm gonna make angled cuts. So we're creating a V-notch basically around the entire circumference of the wooden spool that we made. This, my friends, is what you're going to come up with. Okay, so you can see my notch all the way down through, and now I can put my spindle back through. So we're creating that pulley. This is going to allow our rope not to slide, and then this is the axis point in which it's going to spin. Pretty cool, right? So it's not as perfect as you'd buy at Home Depot, but we're bushcrafting. It's fun, and it should be something exciting to do. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to put something in place here to be able to hang this pulley, so then we can put our rope through it and have at it. Okay, so the option that I'm gonna show you is I'm gonna just use some of this sisal rope. Again, I'm not putting hundreds of pounds onto this pulley, so you would have to, of course, decide what type of rope is gonna work for your application. But in my case, I can split this sisal open, okay? I wanna make sure when I do this, I leave enough of a tag end on there. And I'm just gonna slide my spindle spool through there, okay? Just like that, really easy. I'm gonna then not lose my pieces and decide what height I want this to be able to connect to something. I'm gonna then come to the other side of my rope, open that up just by unspinning it, and then I'm simply going to place it over the other end and give it a little twist back down. So now what I'm creating is something that can hang this, okay? The chances that you're going to unspin all of this are slim to none. So it's gonna be nice and strong this way, at least for our application we're gonna be doing. Maybe it's just pulling an animal up into a tree, or lifting something that we can't just lift on our own, that we need to wedge or something. So this is where we're at. So I'm gonna cut this free on this side. And then what I'm gonna do with these ends is I'm gonna open one side back up again, and I'm gonna put it back over. So like, think of double trouble, okay? And what this is gonna do is give me more strength here, and it's gonna keep this end from getting tied up with the rope. So I'm gonna flip this to the other side, and we're gonna do the exact same thing. Again, I'm just gonna slide this up towards the end. I'm gonna open this line up a little bit, get a tight bite over it, flip it over, and now my pulley system is almost complete. If I wanted to, I can go ahead and tie off these two sides and trim that rope down, which I'm gonna do here in a second. But this is generally what we're looking at for our pulley. Our pulley is gonna spin on the inside as our rope lies through there, and we'll be able to hang this thing up. So let's give it a shot here. Let me get these ends tied up first though. All right, so let's go hang this thing and see how it actually works. I think it's gonna work awesome. It's gonna be great. All right, so this should be pretty good testing here. I'm gonna put it right there. I'm gonna use some line through it. You can see it's rolling really nice now. Okay, so let's see how it works once we load some weight on there. All right, pulley's working. We get a little bit of stickage. It's on a nail there. We get a little bit on the pulley itself in some certain spots where it starts to bind up a little bit, but otherwise it's rolling fine and looks good. I like it. So I hope you enjoyed our wild pulley project, although like I said at the beginning of the video, this might be something that you never really need out here, okay? But it's a good skill to understand and know. There's a lot of good factors that we had to put into play here in order to make this thing happen. We had to cut notches, we had to determine size of wood, we got to practice our bow drill a lot, we learned something about rope, a mechanical advantage type situation. So a lot of good things for a bushcrafter to know overall, and literally just a fun project. We're gonna hang this thing in a cabinet. It just looks cool overall. And then you can always add on more of these. It would just take more work. You can make a block and tackle system out of this to gain that mechanical advantage for larger type moving situations. So definitely something worthwhile and fun to do. So give it a shot. Tell me if you make them. If you make it and you post it somewhere, definitely tag me. I want to check out your invention. But that's it. So fun day out in the woods with Dan. What else can you ask for other than you be in the woods? So you go, stay in the woods, check out our website, all classes, school merchandise, all that good stuff. And until next video, stay in the woods. That's twice I got to say it.